All right, so welcome back. I know we took a day or two in between these, but I just kind of took that time to figure out what direction I want to go, and I realized that there are some things I really want to touch up on that I'm going to probably be using shortly within the next couple videos. So I've also introduced, I'm going to push this linked list and push pop to the next section after this challenge. This challenge is going to be kind of a checkpoint for you guys to take a crack at what you think you know at this point. And if you've watched all these videos and have been following along pretty closely, you should be able to do this. It shouldn't be super challenging. And I want you to let me know, give me feedback if it is super challenging, because that means that I am doing a poor job of demonstrating to you or giving you even enough things to try out along the way. So, but we will get into error checking before that and Boolean values. Let's talk about that. So um, let's go ahead and declare our public static void main string brackets args. And you're used to this. You know, you've seen this a couple times now. You know that this is something that just needs to happen in order for your program as a new programmer to execute properly, assuming you're dealing with a singular class and whatnot. So what if I were to do, int cake equals 5 or 4, right? So this is saying I want to declare an integer variable name cake and put it within public static void main, right? You're used to this. You've seen this a couple times. I can then modify, cake equals cake plus 3, blah, blah, blah. But you haven't seen me actually declare one out here. So let's say I did private static int new cake, right? Set that equal to 3. So what is this? This is saying, well, yeah, sure, it's all fine and good that I've declared cake in here and I've modified cake as such. If I were to have created another function out here, it would not have reference to cake, this variable that I've used so commonly within public static void main. However, if I went ahead and said new cake equals new cake plus 4, and assuming this executed 4, I could still have that variable be saved within this class, within this definition, and any other future function would be able to actually reference this new cake variable. So it's useful to have it be multifaceted like that, be able to span it. But there are also times where it's inappropriate. If there's something that's specific only to this first function, I wouldn't want to have future function have access to this variable. I don't want them to have access to cake because maybe cake is specific only to this function, but maybe new cake is a general thing, right? Like if I'm keeping a head count and this is like, how many male people, how many female people, sure, right? I don't care in the female section how many male people there are, just like I don't care in the male section how many female section people there are. But I may want like a variable head count that keeps in mind all of the people, right? Regardless of male or female, it just is a running head count. So that's an example of when you would want to have a global variable or like a class variable, one that's accessible anywhere throughout the class, versus one that you would want just in a function, like a functional variable that's just then and there. So on that same topic, let's say I were to do a private static Boolean, and we'll name it flag variable, right? And we'll set that equal to false. So what does this mean? Boolean is literally the definition on Google is a bool is a true or false value typically used in programming. There is no intermediate. There's no halfway. There's no maybe. It's just yes, no, 0, 1, on or off. And the way that Java reads the word false is a 0, whereas the word true is a 1. So it's something that's very useful when you're dealing with if statements, which we'll talk about later. If you're dealing with case statements, anything that has a flag variable that will read either a 0 or a 1 for a situation to pass or fail, true or false can be used interchangeably. So it's a very useful thing to have. For example, at the end of public static void main, maybe I wanted to have my main function. I wanted to say, you know what, like this executed correctly. I have gone through the entirety of the code, nothing failed. Go ahead and set flag variable to true. That tells the user at some point, if I wanted to sys out flag var, or, this is a very bad example, right? Because you can just tell the user, hey, I finished in this line. But in so many words, like if you didn't want to put this in this one and you had another function down below, you could sys out flag var and it would just tell you, hey, like it passed at this point, this happened, this chunk of code executed and finished, right? So that is why Boolean is very important. It's a very good thing to know. It's a very good thing to have and an understanding of when you go into error checking, because error checking does use a form of it. I mean, we could be more explicit and explicitly write Booleans out all the time, but in our case, it's not super important. So let's wrap this up, and then we'll get into error checking on the next video.